Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova and watched the stars. His ship moved through space near the planet Kepler 442b. The year was 2387, and humans had just started to build homes on planets far from Earth. Jake's job was to find new worlds where people could live. The Terra Nova was not a big ship. It had 40 crew members and basic equipment for exploring space. Jake had been doing this work for 10 years. He liked the quiet of deep space and the hope of finding something new. "Captain, we're getting strange readings," said Navigator Amy Chen. She sat at her station and looked at the computer screens. "Something big is coming our way." Jake walked over to Amy's station. "How big?" "Really big, sir. The sensors say it's 10 times larger than our ship." Jake felt his stomach tighten. No human ship was that big. "Can you tell what it is?" Before Amy could answer, the space around them changed. The stars seemed to bend and twist. Then, like magic, huge ships appeared everywhere. They were black and silver, with sharp edges that looked like weapons. The smallest one was bigger than any human city. "My God," whispered engineer Tony Williams from his station. "There must be 50 of them." Jake counted the ships on his screen. Tony was wrong. There were more than 50. Much more. "Amy, send a message to Earth right now. Tell them we have company." The biggest alien ship was so large that Jake could not see the end of it. It blocked out the stars like a metal moon. All the alien ships had the same design, cold and built for war. "Captain," said Communications Officer Ben Parker, "we're getting a signal from the big ship. They want to talk." "Put it on screen." The front screen changed from showing space to showing the inside of an alien ship. A creature stood in the center of the image. It was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were black and cold. When it spoke, its voice was deep and hard. "I am Admiral Crix Valdorn of the Zephyrian Empire. You will listen and obey. Your species has broken our laws by leaving your home world. You have 30 seconds to surrender your ship, or we will destroy you." Jake looked at his crew. They all stared back at him with wide eyes. He had trained for many things, but not this. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Terra Nova. We are on a peaceful mission. We don't want any trouble." "Trouble has found you," said Valdorn. "Your 30 seconds are up." The alien ship fired a blue beam of light at the Terra Nova. Jake expected to die. Instead, the beam hit their shields and bounced off. The ship shook, but they were still alive. "That's impossible," said Tony. "Our shields shouldn't be able to stop that." "Get us out of here, Amy," said Jake. "Full speed back to Earth." As the Terra Nova ran from the alien fleet, Jake sent an emergency message to Earth. He told them about the aliens and their threat. He did not know that Admiral Valdorn had already sent his own message to Earth. On Earth, President Lisa Carter sat in her office in Washington. She was 50 years old and had been president for 3 years. She had dealt with wars, natural disasters, and economic problems, but she had never dealt with aliens. Her phone rang. It was General Ryan Brooks, the head of Earth's military. "Madam, President, you need to see this." Minutes later, Lisa stood in the Pentagon's main command room. On the big screen was the same alien that Jake had seen. Admiral Valdorn looked even more frightening on the large screen. "People of Earth," said Valdorn, "I am Admiral Crix Valdorn. I speak for the Zephyrian Empire, which rules this part of the galaxy. You have broken our laws by expanding beyond your home system. This cannot be allowed." Lisa felt cold as she listened. "You have exactly 72 hours to surrender. You will destroy all your weapons. You will stop all space travel. You will submit to Zephyrian rule. If you refuse, we will destroy your planet and everyone on it. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact." The message ended. The room was quiet for a long moment. "How many ships do they have?" asked Lisa. General Brooks looked at his reports. "Our deep space sensors show over 300 ships around Earth. More are arriving every hour." "What about our defenses?" We have 200 ships total. Most are small patrol vessels. Their technology is clearly much better than ours. Dr. Elena Rodriguez entered the room. She was Earth's top expert on alien life, even though humans had never met aliens before. Elena had spent her career studying the possibility. "Madam President," said Elena, "I've been studying their communication. There's something strange about how they talk about us." "What do you mean?" "They call us primitive and inferior. But there's something else. They sound afraid." General Brooks frowned. "Afraid? They have hundreds of ships and we have nothing that can fight them." "I know it sounds crazy," said Elena, "but listen to how Val Dorn speaks. He's trying to sound strong, but his voice shakes a little when he talks about human expansion. Why would they be afraid of us?" Lisa thought about this. "Maybe they're not as strong as they want us to think." "Or maybe," said Elena, "there's something about humans they don't understand." As night fell on Earth, people everywhere watched the news. They could see the alien ships in the sky with their own eyes. The ships were dark against the stars like holes in space. In New York, construction worker Pete Johnson looked up from his job site. "My grandfather fought in World War III, he told his friend. "He always said freedom isn't free. Guess it's our turn now." In London, teacher Mary Watson gathered her students. "Children," she said, "something important is happening. We might have to be very brave." In Tokyo, scientist Dr. Alex Turner worked late in his lab. He studied quantum physics, the science of very small things that acted in strange ways. As he worked, he noticed something odd. The equipment in his lab was acting differently than usual. The quantum fields he studied seemed more active, more alive. Back on the Terra Nova, Jake and his crew raced toward Earth. The alien fleet followed them but did not attack. Jake wondered why. "Captain," said Amy, "I'm getting reports from Earth. The aliens have surrounded our planet." "How many ships?" "The news says 300, but more keep coming." Jake felt sick. Earth had good defenses, but not against this. How long until we reach Earth? 6 hours at this speed. In the Pentagon, President Carter met with her advisors. They sat around a long table covered with reports and maps. "We have to consider surrender," said Secretary of Defense John Adams. "If we fight, they'll kill everyone on Earth. If we surrender, we'll lose our freedom forever," said General Brooks. "My soldiers didn't sign up to become slaves." Lisa looked at Dr. Rodriguez. "Elena, what's your opinion?" "I think we should fight," said Elena. "Not because we can win, but because something is happening that we don't understand yet. These aliens are afraid of something. If we can figure out what that is, maybe we have a chance." "The ships that attacked Captain Morrison's vessel," said Dr. Turner, who had just arrived from Tokyo. "Their weapons should have destroyed the Terra Nova instantly, but they didn't. Our shields worked better than they should have." "What are you saying?" asked Lisa. "I'm saying maybe our technology is more advanced than we think. Maybe humans are more special than we know." Lisa stood up and walked to the window. She could see alien ships in the sky above Washington. They hung there like dark clouds, waiting. 72 hours, she said. "We have 72 hours to decide the future of humanity." The clock was ticking. Earth's leaders had less than 3 days to choose between freedom and survival. Around the world, humans looked up at the alien ships and wondered if they would ever see the sun rise as free people again. But in laboratories and military bases, scientists and soldiers were making discoveries. Dr. Turner's quantum equipment was acting strange. Military computers were running faster than ever before. And somewhere in space, the Terra Nova's shields were stronger than they had any right to be. Something was changing. Something the Zephyrians did not expect. Something that would change the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest structure ever built. Representatives from 2,000 worlds gathered in the massive sphere that floated in space between three stars. For the first time in recorded history, they were meeting to discuss a single species from a single world. Chief Analyst Zorlin stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by delegates from across the galaxy. His report on humanity had caused more debate than any document in Council history. The pale blue observer looked small and nervous as thousands of alien eyes focused on him. "Honored delegates," Zorlin began, "I present the findings of our 18-month study of the species known as humans." The chamber erupted in sounds that no human throat could make. Clicking, whistling, humming, and electronic tones filled the air as different species voiced their opinions. Elder Quandar of the Ancient Ones raised one massive arm for silence. "Continue." "Your report, observer," the elder said in a voice like distant thunder. Zorlin activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images of humans working, fighting, and rebuilding appeared in three-dimensional detail. Humans demonstrate behavioral patterns that contradict all known evolutionary psychology, Zorlin explained. When faced with overwhelming force, they do not surrender. When confronted with certain defeat, they do not retreat. When offered extinction, they choose resistance. Counselor Theiss of the Diplomatic Corps spoke first. Her species had evolved to be perfect negotiators. They could find peaceful solutions to any conflict. "This is impossible," she said. "All intelligent species develop survival instincts. Knowing when to surrender is basic wisdom. Yet humans apparently lack this wisdom," Zorlin replied. He showed video of construction worker Pete Johnson rebuilding the same structure for the fourth time. "This individual has seen his work destroyed repeatedly. Rational behavior would be to abandon the project. Instead, he improves his design and builds again." Fleet Commander Vexkar of the Krellian Empire stood to speak. His people were among the most militaristic in the galaxy, but even they understood when to accept defeat. "Perhaps humans are simply too primitive to understand hopeless situations," he suggested. "We considered that theory," Zorlin said. He showed recordings of Dr. Helen Martinez working with trauma patients. "But humans demonstrate advanced emotional intelligence and analytical capabilities. They understand their situation perfectly. They simply choose to continue fighting." The debate continued for hours. Representatives from aquatic worlds could not understand why humans did not simply swim away from danger. Species that lived in hive minds could not comprehend individual resistance to overwhelming force. Peaceful herbivore races were horrified by human persistence in violent situations. "Show them the historical data," Elder Quandar commanded. Zorlin activated a new display showing Earth's geological history. The chamber fell silent as delegates saw the truth about humanity's home world. "Earth is a death world," Zorlin explained. "In the past 100,000 years, it has experienced 17 ice ages, 47 major volcanic eruptions, 12 asteroid impacts, and countless smaller disasters. The species evolved not in stability, but in constant catastrophe. The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. Every other intelligent species in the galaxy had evolved on stable worlds. Their home planets had predictable weather, safe environments, and abundant resources. Natural selection had favored intelligence, cooperation, and the wisdom to avoid unnecessary risks. Earth was different. Earth was a world where only the stubborn survived. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Nultas of the Aquatic Collective. Her people had evolved in peaceful oceans with no natural predators. No species could survive such conditions. Yet humans did more than survive, Zorlin continued. They flourished. Each catastrophe made them stronger. Each disaster taught them new skills. They learned to see failure not as an ending, but as education. Senator Chris Baker of Earth stood to address the council. He was the first human ever allowed to speak in the chamber, and his presence made many delegates uncomfortable. Chris was not impressive by galactic standards. He was small, weak, and short-lived compared to most council species. But his eyes held something that made ancient aliens look away. "Honored delegates," Chris said. "My people know we seem strange to you. We know our behavior does not make sense by your standards. But we are what our world made us." Chris activated his own holographic display. It showed human children playing in a park, completely unaware that alien warships had been shooting at their planet just days before. "When my daughter falls off her bicycle, she gets back up and tries again," Chris explained. "When she fails a test at school, she studies harder for the next one. When she loses a game, she asks to play again. This is not because she is stupid or stubborn. This is because falling down and getting back up is what humans do." The chamber was silent. Many delegates had never considered that behavior they saw as irrational might actually be the result of different evolutionary pressures. Counselor Thess spoke again, her voice thoughtful. "But surely humans must have limits. There must be some point where even they accept defeat." Chris smiled. "The only limits we accept are the ones we choose ourselves, and we keep choosing to push further. This is dangerous thinking," Fleet Commander Vexcar declared. "A species that refuses to acknowledge superior force threatens galactic stability. What happens when humans develop advanced technology? What happens when they spread to other worlds?" "That is exactly what we need to discuss," Elder Quandar said. His ancient voice carried the weight of millions of years. "Humans represent something new in galactic civilization. We must decide how to respond." The debate that followed would last for 3 days. Some delegates argued that humanity should be destroyed before they could spread their dangerous ideas to other species. Others suggested quarantining Earth to prevent human influence from destabilizing galactic society. But a few delegates had a different perspective. Counselor Meltar of the Explorer Guild had spent centuries mapping unknown regions of space. Her people valued discovery above safety. "Perhaps we are thinking about this wrong," Meltar suggested. "We see human persistence as a threat, but what if it is actually a strength the galaxy needs?" "Explain," Elder Quandar commanded. "The galaxy has been stable for millions of years," Meltar said. "Our species have learned to coexist peacefully. We avoid conflict, accept limitations, and maintain order. But what happens when we face a threat that cannot be negotiated with or avoided?" The chamber considered this. In their long history, the galaxy had never faced an existential threat. Their advanced technology and diplomatic skills had always found solutions to every problem. "You suggest such a threat might arise?" Counselor Thess asked. "The universe is vast," Meltar replied. "We have explored less than 1% of it. What if we encounter something that our wisdom and technology cannot handle? What if we need the one thing we have bred out of ourselves? Which is the refusal to give up." Elder Quandar leaned forward in his massive chair. "You propose that human stubbornness might be valuable?" "I propose that human resilience might be essential," Meltar corrected. "Every species in this chamber knows when to surrender. Only humans have forgotten how." The debate continued, but the tone was changing. Delegates began to see human behavior, not as a flaw to be corrected, but as a trait that might be useful under the right circumstances. Senator Chris Baker listened to the discussions with growing understanding. The galaxy was not just studying humanity. They were trying to decide humanity's fate. "Honored delegates," Chris said when given permission to speak again, "you debate whether humans are dangerous or useful. But there is something you should know about my species." The chamber fell silent. "We do not want to conquer the galaxy," Chris continued. "We do not want to destroy your civilizations or spread chaos. We want to explore, to learn, and to help. When we fall down, we get back up, not because we enjoy fighting, but because we believe things can get better." Chris showed a new image. Human doctors working in a field hospital, treating both human and alien patients after a natural disaster. This is what humans do, Chris said. We see problems and try to fix them. We see suffering and try to help. We see impossible situations and look for solutions. If that makes us useful to the galaxy, then we are honored to serve. If it makes us dangerous, then we are sorry for what we are. The chamber erupted in discussion again, but this time the tone was different. For the first time, delegates were considering the possibility that humanity might be an asset rather than a threat. The final vote would not come for several more days. But the tide was turning. The galaxy was beginning to realize that sometimes the ability to never give up was exactly what civilization needed. They would discover just how right they were sooner than anyone expected. The vote was scheduled for the following week, but the galaxy ran out of time. Deep space monitoring stations detected something that changed everything. Ships were approaching from the void between galaxies, and they were like nothing anyone had ever seen. Dr. Nancy Lee was working in the ruins of an ancient library on the dead world of Arcturus Prime when the emergency signals reached her. Nancy was Earth's first galactic archaeologist, studying the remains of civilizations that had existed millions of years before humans learned to make fire. "Dr. Lee, you need to return to the council chamber immediately," came the urgent message from Senator Chris Baker. "We have a situation." Nancy gathered her research materials and headed for her ship. She had been studying the remains of the predecessor civilization, a mysterious race that had vanished without explanation 3 million years ago. Her discoveries were important, but apparently not as important as whatever crisis was developing. When Nancy arrived at the council chamber, she found chaos. Delegates from 2,000 worlds were shouting in hundreds of languages. The great holographic displays showed images that made even ancient species look frightened. "What are those things?" Nancy asked Chris as she took her seat in the human section. "The council is calling them void devourers," Chris replied grimly. "They consume entire star systems, and they're heading this way." On the main display, Nancy could see the alien ships. They were massive beyond comprehension, each one larger than Earth's moon. They moved through space like living creatures, flowing and shifting as they traveled. Behind them, star systems simply ceased to exist. Elder Quandar's voice boomed through the chamber. "Honored delegates, we face the greatest threat in galactic history. These entities have already consumed 17 star systems. Our most advanced weapons have no effect on them." Fleet Commander Vexakar was the first to speak. "My forces engaged the lead ship 6 hours ago. Our entire battle fleet was destroyed in minutes. The enemy did not even slow down." Counselor Thiss looked shaken. "Our diplomatic teams tried to communicate with them. They showed no interest in negotiation. They consume everything in their path and move on." The chamber filled with panicked discussions. Some species began talking about evacuation plans. Others suggested surrendering entire sectors of space to satisfy the invaders. A few proposed hiding on remote worlds and hoping the threat would pass. Nancy listened to the debates with growing horror. The galaxy's greatest civilizations were preparing to give up without a real fight. They were talking about abandoning billions of worlds because their first attempts at resistance had failed. "This is insane," Nancy whispered to Chris. "This is how they think," Chris replied. "When faced with overwhelming force, you retreat or surrender. It's how every species in the galaxy has survived for millions of years." Nancy stood up and activated her portable computer. The data she had been collecting on Arcturus Prime suddenly seemed very important. "Senator Baker, I need to address the council," Nancy said urgently. Chris looked surprised. "Nancy, you're an archaeologist, not a military strategist." "Exactly. And I think I know why the predecessors disappeared." Chris managed to get Nancy permission to speak. The chamber was still in chaos when she activated the main holographic display and showed her research. Honored delegates, Nancy began, I have been studying the predecessor civilization for 2 years. They were the most advanced species in galactic history. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything we have today. The chamber quieted as delegates looked at the images of predecessor ruins. Their cities had been magnificent. Their ships were masterpieces of engineering, and their weapons could destroy planets. Yet they vanished overnight, Nancy continued. No trace of war, no evidence of disease, no sign of natural disaster. 3 million years ago, they simply stopped existing. Nancy showed new images from her recent excavations. But yesterday, I found this. The display showed a massive stone tablet covered in predecessor writing. The translation appeared beside it in Galactic Standard Language. It is a warning, Nancy explained. The predecessors encountered the Void Devourers. Their advanced technology was useless. Their superior firepower meant nothing, so they made a choice. The chamber was completely silent now. They chose to flee to another galaxy rather than fight a hopeless battle. The most advanced civilization in known history abandoned everything they had built because they could not win. Nancy paused and looked around the chamber. And that is exactly what you are planning to do right now. Angry voices erupted from dozens of species. How dare a primitive human compare them to the mighty predecessors? How could she suggest that retreat was cowardice? Nancy waited for quiet, then continued. But there is something the predecessors never had, something that might have made the difference. She activated a new display showing human history. Images of cities rebuilt after earthquakes, explorers venturing into unknown dangers, and soldiers fighting impossible odds. They never had a species that did not know how to quit. Fleet Commander Vexcar stood angrily. Human, your species has no experience with threats of this magnitude. You cannot comprehend the power we face. You're right, Nancy admitted. We cannot comprehend it. And that is exactly why we might succeed where everyone else has failed. Senator Chris Baker understood what Nancy was suggesting. He stood and addressed the council. Honored delegates, we propose a different approach. Instead of retreating or surrendering, let humanity coordinate the galaxy's defense. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Let a primitive species command the greatest military forces in galactic history? The idea was absurd, but Elder Quandar raised his massive arm for silence. Explain your reasoning, human. Chris took a deep breath. Every species in this chamber is smarter than humans. You have better technology, superior weapons, and millions of years of experience. But you all have one thing in common. He paused and looked around the chamber. You all know when to give up. You all have learned to accept defeat when facing superior force. And that knowledge is exactly what is defeating you now. Nancy stepped forward. We propose Operation Last Stand. Every military force in the galaxy under unified human command. Not because we are the best generals, but because we are the only species that will never order a retreat. The debate that followed was the most intense in council history. Many delegates were horrified by the suggestion. How could they trust their most powerful weapons to a species that had just learned to travel between stars? But as reports came in from the front lines, opinions began to change. The Void Devourers were moving faster than expected. Traditional military strategies were failing completely. Evacuation plans were falling behind schedule. We are running out of time, Elder Quandar finally declared. The enemy will reach inhabited systems within days. We must make a decision. The vote was closer than anyone expected. In the end, desperation overcame pride. By a narrow margin, the council agreed to try the human plan. Within hours, Commander Alex Stone arrived at the council chamber. Alex was humanity's top military strategist, a former Marine who had fought in every alien conflict. He looked at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization and smiled. Ladies, gentlemen, and various other beings, Alex said casually, I understand you have a pest control problem. Fleet Commander Vexcar was insulted. These entities have destroyed entire fleets. They are not pests. With respect, Commander, that is exactly the kind of thinking that has been losing this war, Alex replied. You see unstoppable force and prepare to be stopped. I see a big target that needs more shooting. Alex activated the tactical displays and began outlining his strategy. Instead of meeting the Void Devourers with traditional battle formations, he proposed something completely different. We are going to hit them with everything we have all at once from every direction, Alex explained. When that fails, we are going to try again with different tactics. When that fails, we will try something else. We will keep trying until we find something that works. And if nothing works? Counselor Thiss asked. Alex shrugged. Then we try harder. The battle for galactic survival began 3 days later. Alex coordinated fleets from 2,000 worlds in an assault on the lead Void Devourer. As expected, the first attack failed. Completely. The second attack also failed. So did the third, fourth, and fifth. But something interesting happened during the sixth attack. For just a moment, the enemy ship stopped advancing. There, Alex said excitedly. Did you see that? When we hit the center section with concentrated plasma fire, it paused. That means it felt something. Send word to Earth and all Confederation worlds, Jake ordered. Tell them the next phase of our journey is about to begin. As the unknown threat approached from the darkness between galaxies, Jake thought about how far humanity had come. They had been asked to surrender and had chosen to fight. They had been threatened with destruction and had chosen to build. They had been offered the chance for revenge and had chosen mercy. Whatever came next, they would face it as they had faced everything else, together, with hope in their hearts and the power of consciousness as their guide. The Zephyrians had demanded submission. Instead, they had received something they never expected, the chance to become something better than they had ever been before. And in the vast darkness of space, the stars themselves seemed to send word to the home fleet, he ordered. We need every ship. The humans must be dest. 6 months after the rebellion began, the galaxy was burning with the fire of freedom. Captain Jake Morrison commanded a fleet of liberated ships that moved like ghosts through space. Each ship carried humans and freed aliens working together to bring down the Zephyrian Empire. Jake stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Terra Nova. Around him worked beings from 20 different worlds. Amy Chen still served as his navigator, but now she could phase entire fleets across the galaxy in seconds. Tony Williams had become the chief engineer for all liberated technology, teaching alien mechanics how human consciousness could make their machines stronger. Captain, said Sage, the Andromedan who had become Jake's advisor, we're receiving reports from the Vega system. 3 prison worlds have been liberated in the past week. Jake smiled. Each victory made the next one easier. When slaves saw that freedom was possible, they fought harder. And when humans worked together with other species, their abilities grew stronger. Where do we hit next? Asked Jake. The Kepler shipyards, said Amy. It's where they build their war fleet. If we can destroy it, they'll lose their ability to make new ships. The Kepler shipyards were heavily defended. 50 Zephyrian warships guarded the massive construction facility. It would be the biggest battle yet. Can we phase the entire fleet? Asked Jake. Amy closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. She could feel the other human navigators on the other ships. Together, they were much stronger than they were alone. Yes, Captain, but we'll need every human in the fleet to concentrate together. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian homeworld of Zephyr Prime, Admiral Valdorn faced the Council of Elders. These ancient beings had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They were not happy. You told us the humans would surrender quickly, said Elder Morvax, the oldest of the council. Instead, they have destroyed half our empire. The humans are not what we expected, said Valdorn. They possess abilities we thought were extinct. The abilities of the Primarchs, said another elder. We should have destroyed Earth the moment we detected them. Elder Morvax turned to his personal assistant, a scholar named Keth, who had spent his life studying ancient history. "Show Admiral Val Dorn what you found in the archives." Keth activated a holographic display. Ancient images filled the room. Images of the war between the Zephyrians and the Primarchs millions of years ago. "The Primarchs were not just powerful," explained Keth. "They were impossible to defeat because they could adapt to any weapon we used against them. Their consciousness-based technology learned and evolved." "We won that war," said Val Dorn. "Did we?" asked Keth. "Look at this record from the final battle." The hologram showed a massive space battle. Zephyrian fleets attacked Primarch worlds with planet-killing weapons. But just before the weapons hit, the Primarch worlds disappeared. "They didn't die," said Keth. "They escaped. The entire Primarch civilization vanished in a single day. We thought we had destroyed them, but they had simply moved beyond our reach." "Where did they go?" asked Val Dorn. "According to this record, they sent seed ships to distant galaxies, places where their children could grow up safely and develop their abilities." Elder Morvax spoke slowly. "One of those seed ships reached the galaxy we call the Milky Way. The planet they chose was Earth." Val Dorn felt cold. "The humans are not descendants of the Primarchs. They are the Primarchs." "Yes, and now they have awakened. Every battle makes them stronger. Every victory teaches them new ways to use their power." On Earth, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was making the same discovery. She worked in a new research facility built specifically to study human consciousness. Dr. Alex Turner was there, along with Ben Parker and dozens of other scientists. "Elena, look at this data," said Dr. Turner. "We've been testing human abilities for months now. Every week people get stronger. Every test shows new capabilities." Dr. Rodriguez studied the numbers. "It's like we're evolving in real time. Each generation of humans has stronger abilities than the last." "It's not evolution," said Ben Parker. "It's remembering. The knowledge was always inside us. We're just learning how to access it." Ben had become the most powerful human communicator. He could reach across the entire galaxy with his thoughts and coordinate with liberated worlds in real time. "I've been talking to the freed aliens," he continued. "They say the same thing is happening to them. Being around humans is awakening abilities they never knew they had." Dr. Turner nodded. "The Primarchs didn't just save themselves. They built the ability to free others into their genetic code." President Lisa Carter entered the laboratory. She looked tired but determined. Leading humanity through its greatest challenge had aged her, but it had also made her stronger. "How long until we're ready for the final push?" she asked. "The rebellion is spreading faster than we can track," said Elena. "Half the galaxy is in revolt, but the Zephyrians still control their core worlds." "And they're getting desperate," added Ben. "My contacts report that they're building some kind of superweapon, something they call the Void Maker." Dr. Turner looked worried. "What does it do?" "It's designed to destroy consciousness itself. If they use it, it won't just kill us. It will erase the possibility of thought from entire star systems." President Carter felt sick. "How many people would die?" "Billions, maybe trillions. They're so afraid of losing their empire that they're willing to destroy the galaxy to stop us." That night, Captain Morrison received emergency orders from Earth. His fleet had to reach Zephyr Prime before the superweapon was completed. It was humanity's last chance to end the war before the Zephyrians committed the ultimate atrocity. "How long do we have?" asked Jake. 2 weeks, said Amy. "But Zephyr Prime is the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. They have thousands of ships protecting it." Sage spoke up. "There is another way. The ancient archives speak of a weapon the Primarchs used in the final battle of the Old War, something called the Unity Field." "What does it do?" asked Tony. "It connects the consciousness of every living being in a star system. For a brief moment, everyone feels what everyone else feels. Truth becomes impossible to hide," Jake thought about this. You mean the Zephyrians would experience the pain they've caused? Yes, and their slaves would experience the hope of freedom. It would end the war instantly. But what? Asked Amy. Using it requires enormous sacrifice. Someone has to volunteer to be the focus of the field. They might not survive the experience. On Zephyr Prime, Admiral Valdorn prepared for the final battle. The Voidmaker was almost complete. In just days, he would have the power to destroy human consciousness forever. But he was troubled by what he had learned about the Primarchs. These beings had been peaceful. They had used their great power to help others, not to conquer. Why had his ancestors been so afraid of them? The answer came from an unexpected source. Valdorn's own daughter, Zara, had been studying the ancient records. She was young for a Zephyrian, only 50 years old, and she had grown up hearing stories about the glorious empire her people had built. "Father," she said, "I've been reading the real history of our empire, not the official version." "What do you mean?" asked Valdorn. "The Primarchs never attacked us? We attacked them? They were trying to help our people develop peacefully, but our leaders wanted to rule the galaxy by force." Valdorn stared at his daughter. "That's not possible. Look at the records yourself. The Primarchs offered to share their knowledge freely. They wanted to teach us to use consciousness technology for healing and creation. Our ancestors chose war instead." That night, Valdorn read the ancient files his daughter had found. She was right. The Zephyrians had started the war not because the Primarchs threatened them, but because the Primarchs represented everything the Zephyrians were not: peaceful, generous, and wise. "We destroyed them because they made us look evil by comparison," Valdorn whispered to himself, as Captain Morrison's fleet approached Zephyr Prime. They found something unexpected. Many Zephyrian ships were leaving the system instead of defending it. Some were even switching sides and joining the Liberation fleet. "What's happening?" asked Jake. Ben Parker, using his communication abilities, had the answer. "The truth is spreading even among the Zephyrians. Some of them are learning what their empire really is, and they don't want to be part of it anymore." Amy Chen could feel the unity field building naturally as more beings joined their cause. Humans, Andromedans, former Zephyrian slaves, and now, even some Zephyrians themselves were all thinking the same thoughts, that freedom was worth fighting for and that the old empire of fear had to end. "Captain," said Sage, "I think we can create the unity field without anyone dying. There are so many minds working together now that the load can be shared." Jake felt hope rising in his chest. Maybe they could end this war without more death. Maybe consciousness really was stronger than weapons. But on Zephyr Prime, Elder Morvax made a desperate decision. If the Empire was going to fall, he would make sure the Primarchs fell with it. He gave the order to activate the Voidmaker, even though it wasn't fully charged. The weapon fired a beam of pure darkness toward Earth. If it hit, human consciousness would be erased forever, but the beam never reached its target. Millions of liberated minds across the galaxy joined together to create a shield of pure though.